welcome to Cook to Nourish. Today I bring for you another nourishing recipe, and this is chicken liver masala. Now chicken liver or any other liver is actually an all organ meat, are in general very good for your body because they are filled with all the beneficial nutrients that your body needs, especially iron and a lot of the vitamins. In general, people don't like to eat liver because because of the texture and the taste. They feel it's like slimy and not really, doesn't look like very palatable. I was also the same, and until I in my childhood, and then I finally began to appreciate and enjoy chicken livers when my parents and my grandmother used to cook liver by adding all these nice flavors and lots of onions and also coconut pieces in it. And so that's the recipe that I'm going to share with you today.
So I use organic chicken liver. This is the brand Bell and Evans, and it's about 1 pound. I have onions here and ginger, fresh curry leaves that I'll be using, and I'd like to tear them so you get the full flavor. Then I also have a couple green chilies, ginger, and then garlic finely chopped. Next, I'll also be using coconut oil. So the liver, you have to make sure that it is thawed beforehand, and that's very important. You need to keep it out of the freezer for at least like 3-4 hours so that it's completely thawed. And next I'm going to use a bunch of different spices, and I'll show you the exact measurements when we start adding them to the recipe. And fresh fennel powder is also very important, along with coconut chips or slices. You can use either fresh or frozen. Now start by taking a really wide bottom pan and add the coconut oil and the onions. As you can see, I've thinly sliced the onions, and that's very important. I also like to use red onions. That's best for this recipe. They get nicely caramelized, and that's what you want here. So you have to cook the onions for about 5 minutes initially. And I'm going to add a couple bay leaves to it, and just cook them on slow to a medium heat for about 5 minutes, stirring occasionally until they get that pink, light pink color. There you go. So you see how they have softened up a little bit. So that's what you want, and then you add the rest of the things like the garlic, the green chili, curry leaves, and the ginger. Make sure all these are finely chopped. Now green chilies are totally optional, and obviously add them only if you can handle the heat and if you know how to separate them out while you're eating. As Indians, we are used to doing that, so we're very careful when we are eating to pluck the green chilies out. But if you're not used to that, I wouldn't recommend adding them. Then you add about a teaspoon of sea salt to begin with, and then later on, as you taste test, you can add more. Half a teaspoon of turmeric powder. Now about 1 teaspoon of Kashmiri red chili powder, and I add about 1 teaspoon of cumin powder. Now I like to use all freshly ground spices as much as possible. Next I'm adding the coriander powder, 3 teaspoons of coriander powder. Now stir it once you add the spices, because otherwise the spices will burn, so you don't want that, so you have to stir them constantly. And also make sure that the heat is on between low to medium. Now you can see the onions are getting soft. Now we'll add the chicken liver. So make sure, as I said before, you thaw the liver in advance so that it's all completely thawed. And so now, as you can see, it's all very jiggly, and all that blood and liquid is there. So you just cover and cook it, so that it becomes a little firm to touch. Right now, there's no point in stirring it. So now I've cooked it for about 5 minutes on low, and as you can see the bottom, the liver pieces are getting cooked. So I'm just slowly stirring it right now, just to mix the onions and the spices with the liver pieces, so that while it's cooking it next, it absorbs all those flavors. So I'm just gently mixing it right now, and I'm going to again cover and cook this for another 5 minutes or so. Again, always cook it on between low to medium heat. Do not cook it on very high heat. So I'm going to add some more spices here. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of garam masala, and I'll give you the AIP substitution in my recipe on the website. And then I'm adding 1 teaspoon of freshly ground fennel powder, ground fennel. Now this gives it a very good flavor. For AIP, you could use like just the fresh fennel fronds instead. And now I'm adding the coconut pieces or coconut slices. I'm using frozen coconut slices that I had thawed before, and then just cover and cook for another 5 minutes. By then the liver is almost cooked, as you can see, and then you can just cook the rest of it by stirring it, and just so that you can also mix all the spices well with the onions and the chicken liver, everything kind of getting mixed well, so that it's just like a very tasty combination together with the coconut and the chicken liver and the spices and the onions. And I wish you could smell this right now, because it just smells absolutely wonderful. And now I'm just trying to break those big chicken liver pieces, break them down into smaller manageable bite-sized pieces, and you could use an additional spoon like I'm doing here, and stir, and it is very easy to break them apart now, because they've become cooked and they've become very soft and to touch. And next I'm going to add a tablespoon of coconut oil. That just finishes the dish off very nicely, but making it nice, nice and shiny. And the coconut oil, fresh coconut oil on top gives it a very good flavor as well. And then lastly, the fresh cilantro. For AIP recipe, I suggest you add more cilantro. You can serve it with grain-free tortillas. Hope you like this recipe, and don't forget to subscribe.